Daniel drives a 2019 Honda Accord, packs his lunch every day, lives in a quiet suburb. His neighbors think he's a schoolteacher. He has $2.3 million in the bank. His coworker Marcus leases a BMW, wears a financed Rolex, posts rooftop bar photos every single weekend. Marcus has $400 in savings. Same city, same age, completely opposite financial realities. And here's the thing, Daniel is not the exception. He is the pattern. The people who look the richest are almost never the wealthiest. And the people who are genuinely, quietly wealthy, you would walk right past them and never know. So today, I want to show you exactly why that is and what it means for your money. Now, let's talk about what the media wants you to believe. Flip on any TV show about rich people. Open any social media app. The story is always the same. Wealth looks like a penthouse. Wealth looks like a private jet. Wealth looks like a watch that costs more than a car, worn casually like it's no big deal. The message, repeated thousands of times a day across every screen you own, is that money is something you wear, something you display, something you perform for other people. And this messaging works. Like, it really works. Because human beings are social creatures. We are wired, literally wired at the neurological level, to care about status. We evolved in small tribes where your social standing determined your survival. The part of your brain that responds to status signals is ancient and powerful, and it does not care whether you can actually afford the thing you're about to buy. It just knows that buying it feels like moving up. The luxury industry understands this better than almost any other industry on the planet. They are not selling you a bag. They are not selling you a car. They are selling you a feeling of arrival, a signal to the world, and honestly to yourself, that you have made it. But here is the uncomfortable truth that the luxury industry will never put in an advertisement. Most of the people buying those signals haven't made it. They are borrowing status they haven't earned, with money they haven't saved, to impress people who honestly aren't paying nearly as much attention as they think. The actually wealthy, the people with generational money, with true financial independence, with the ability to never work again if they wanted to, most of them are not doing what TV tells you they're doing. And the data backs this up in ways that should genuinely stop you in your tracks. Let's look at the numbers. Thomas Stanley spent decades studying wealthy people in America. His research, compiled in the book The Millionaire Next Door, produced findings that contradicted almost everything popular culture teaches about wealth. He found that the majority of American millionaires live in middle-class neighborhoods. The majority drive American-made cars, not European luxury brands. The majority have never spent more than $400 on a suit. The majority have never spent more than $140 on a pair of shoes. His research found that the number one indicator of net worth was not income. It was not the neighborhood someone lived in. It was the gap between what someone earned and what they spent. He described it as the difference between being a prodigious accumulator of wealth versus an under-accumulator of wealth. And the single biggest predictor of which category someone fell into was whether they prioritized looking wealthy or actually being wealthy. A 2019 study by Experian found that the average new car loan in the United States carried an interest rate of over 6%, with an average monthly payment of $554. That is $554 every single month going toward a depreciating asset, something that loses value the moment you drive it off the lot. If you invested that same $554 per month instead, at the historical average market return of 10%, you would have over $1.1 million in 30 years. Not because you did anything complicated, not because you picked the right stock or timed the market perfectly, simply because you redirected one car payment into an index fund and left it alone. A separate study by the Federal Reserve found that 40% of Americans could not cover an unexpected $400 expense without borrowing money or selling something. 40%! And yet the consumer credit industry extends hundreds of billions of dollars in loans every year, specifically to allow people to purchase things that signal wealth they do not actually have. The average American household carries over $7,000 in credit card debt. The average interest rate on that debt is above 20%. That means tens of millions of Americans are paying premium prices every single month just to maintain the appearance of a financial life they are not actually living. Meanwhile, the quietly wealthy are doing something completely different. So, what are they actually doing? Let me break this down into specific rules, not theories, not vague motivational advice. Real, concrete psychological shifts that separate the people who build wealth from the people who just perform it. Rule number 1. They have separated their identity from their possessions. This is the foundation. Everything else builds on this. The reason most people overspend is not greed, it is not stupidity. It is that at some deep level, they have fused who they are with what they own. When you buy a luxury item, you are not just buying an object. You are buying a version of yourself. A self that is successful, a self that has arrived, a self that other people will respect and admire. The problem is that this version of yourself requires constant maintenance. The moment the car gets older, the moment the watch goes out of style, the moment someone in your circle shows up with a bigger display, you need to upgrade. Not because the old thing stopped working, but because the identity you built on top of it requires you to keep spending just to maintain it. The genuinely wealthy have made a different call. They have built their identity on something that cannot be taken away, repossessed, or devalued by someone else's purchase. They build their identity on their knowledge, their judgment, their ability to create value, their financial discipline. These things compound over time. They do not depreciate, and they do not require a monthly payment. Rule number 2. They calculate the true cost of everything. This sounds simple, but it is almost never actually practiced. Most people, when they consider buying something, think about the price tag. The wealthy think about 3 things: the purchase price, the ongoing cost of ownership, and the cost of the mental energy it is going to consume. Take a sports car. The sticker price might be $80,000, but now add the insurance, significantly higher than a standard vehicle. Add the maintenance, the specialized tires, the service schedule that requires a dealership instead of your regular mechanic. Add the depreciation, which on a luxury vehicle can be 20 to 30% in the first 3 years alone. And then add something that never appears on any invoice: the mental load. The anxiety every time you park it somewhere tight, the stress when you notice a scratch, the identity fragility that comes from owning something you feel like you constantly need to protect. Warren Buffett, worth well over $100 billion, famously still lives in the same house he bought in 1958 for $31,500. He has talked openly about why. It is not that he cannot afford something bigger and fancier. It is that the house requires zero mental energy. It does not eat into his cognitive bandwidth. It does not demand that he perform wealth for the neighbors. It just does its job, and he gets to spend his mental energy on what actually makes him money. The question quietly wealthy people ask before any major purchase is not, "Can I afford this?" It is, "What will this actually cost me, financially, mentally, and in terms of the opportunity I am giving up?" Rule number 3. They invest the difference, consistently and automatically. This is where the math gets genuinely staggering, and I want you to stay with me here because this is the part that changes the way you see every single spending decision for the rest of your life. Every dollar you do not spend on a status symbol is a dollar that can be invested, and invested dollars, given enough time, do not just grow, they compound. Compounding is not linear, it is exponential. It is the closest thing to a financial superpower that actually exists, and it is available to absolutely everyone, but only to the people who actually show up and participate. If you are 25 years old and you invest $500 a month into a broad market index fund and you do nothing else, no stock picking, no market timing, no complicated strategies, you will have, at the historical average return of the S&P 500, approximately $2.6 million by the time you are 65. Not because you were brilliant, not because you got lucky, simply because you started, you stayed consistent, and you did not stop. Now here is the part that genuinely breaks people's brains. If you wait until you are 35 to start that same investment, with the same $500 a month at the same return, You end up with approximately $950,000. You waited 10 years. You lost over $1.6 million. Not because the market punished you, not because you made a bad investment, simply because you were not in the market. And those 10 years of delay? In a lot of cases, they were spent on things that looked like wealth, but were building absolutely none. Rule number 4. They understand that consistency beats timing every single time. This is the rule that the financial media will never fully embrace because their entire business model depends on convincing you that there is always something you need to react to. A market crash, a hot new sector, a new asset class blowing up, a reason to get in fast, or a reason to get out now. And so people wait. They wait for the right moment to invest. They wait for the market to dip. They wait until they have more information, more certainty, more confidence. And while they wait, time, the only truly irreplaceable resource in investing, keeps passing. A study by Charles Schwab looked at what would happen if 5 different investors each had $2,000 to invest every year for 20 years. The first investor had perfect timing. They always bought at the market's lowest point of the year. The second invested on the very first day of every year, no timing whatsoever. The third spread their investment out in equal monthly installments. The fourth had the worst possible timing. They always invested at the market's absolute highest point. The fifth never invested at all and just kept the cash. After 20 years, the perfect timer ended up with $87,000. The person who invested on the first day of every year with zero timing skill ended up with $81,000. The monthly investor had $79,000. The worst possible timer had $72,000. And the person who never invested, $20,000. Just the cash they had saved but never put to work. The gap between perfect timing and the worst possible timing was about $15,000 over 20 years. The gap between investing at all and not investing was over $50,000. That tells you everything you need to know. Being in the market imperfectly, consistently, without trying to outsmart it, produces results that are dramatically better than waiting for a perfect moment that never actually comes. Rule number 5. They protect their wealth from their own psychology. This is the rule that does not get talked about nearly enough. The greatest threat to your financial future is not a market crash. It is not inflation. It is not even a bad investment decision. It is your own emotional response to all of those things. The average investor significantly underperforms the market, not because they pick bad stocks, but because they react emotionally at the worst possible moments. They sell during downturns because fear feels like smart caution. They buy during peaks because optimism feels like real insight. They check their portfolios during volatile stretches and make decisions driven by anxiety instead of strategy. The quietly wealthy protect themselves from this by automating everything they possibly can. They set up automatic contributions to their investment accounts. They decide on their allocation once, based on their time horizon and risk tolerance, and then they leave it alone. They treat their investments like a utility bill, something that runs in the background every month, regardless of how they feel, regardless of what the headlines are screaming about. They have also done the psychological work of disconnecting their sense of progress from their account balance on any given Tuesday. They understand that whatever the balance says today is almost completely irrelevant. The only balance that matters is the one on the day they actually need the money. And that balance is not determined by a single brilliant decision. It is determined by decades of consistent, unglamorous, boring participation in a system that has, over every significant stretch of time in modern history, rewarded the people who stayed. Now let me tell you why all of this connects to something much deeper than money. The reason quiet wealth works, and the reason performative wealth almost always fails, is not just mathematical. It is philosophical. It is about what you are actually building your entire life around. When you build your life around the display of wealth, you are building something that is permanently dependent on other people's perception of you. You need other people to see the car, to notice the watch, to double-tap the vacation photos. Your sense of financial progress, and honestly your sense of self-worth, gets outsourced to an audience that is mostly too wrapped up in their own financial anxiety to be paying anywhere near as much attention as you think. When you build your life around actual wealth, around living below your means, investing consistently, and letting time do the heavy lifting, you are building something completely different. You are building optionality. The freedom to leave a job that is slowly grinding you down. The ability to help your kids without going into debt. The capacity to face an unexpected crisis, a medical emergency, a layoff, a global disruption, without the kind of existential panic that comes from an empty savings account. Real wealth is not what you display. Real wealth is what you can survive, what you can choose, what you can give. None of those things photograph well. None of them get engagement on social media. But all of them feel, in real life, like a kind of freedom that no lease payment can come close to buying. The shift I am asking you to make today is not just a spending shift. It is an identity shift. It is the decision to stop being the person who looks wealthy and to start becoming the person who actually is. Those are genuinely different identities. They require different habits, different daily decisions, and a completely different standard for what counts as real progress. Daniel, the guy I told you about at the very beginning of this video, is not driving that Honda because he cannot afford a BMW. He is driving it because every single month, the difference between a Honda payment and a BMW lease goes straight into an index fund. And that fund does not care what it looks like from the outside. It just grows. Quietly, consistently, without needing anyone to notice. Here is your task for the next 60 seconds. Right now, before you close this video, before you open another app, pull up your bank or your brokerage account. If you already have an automatic investment set up, I want you to look at when it runs and just confirm it is still active. If you do not have one set up yet, I want you to go to the recurring transfer or automatic investment section and set up even $50 a month into a broad index fund. $50. That is less than most people spend on subscriptions they forgot they signed up for. And if you are 30 years old and you start that today and never increase it, not once, that $50 a month becomes over $105,000 by the time you are 65. Not because you timed the market, not because you picked the right stock, because you showed up, quietly and consistently, without needing a single person to notice or be impressed. That is what wealth actually looks like. Set it up, close the app, and tomorrow drive right past the BMW dealership because you already know something that most of the people driving those cars do not.